Hi everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. And tonight we're doing Season 2, Episode 6, Easter Eggs. So we're going to go through the episode, and we're going to find all those little tidbits that call back to the books, or things we may see in the future of the show. Now, if you're new to the channel, you don't know what we do here, we cover everything Wheel of Time. Right now we're doing reviews, Easter egg videos, and breakdowns of every single episode of Season 2. We're also covering all the news and doing previews for the next couple of episodes, and we do leaks and rumors as well. I have a ton of Season 3 leaks ready for you folks once Season 2 is done. So if you like that sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to the channel, of course, because you're not going to want to miss a bit of content from us in the next few months. Now, all of that being said, I am going to give a bit of a spoiler warning, and, well, that's a lie. I'm going to give a huge spoiler warning for this video. I always give full book spoiler warnings for all of my Easter egg and breakdown videos because I tend to talk. I do these unscripted, and I may mention some things that happen much later on in the books. So, spoiler warning. In today's video, since we're doing Easter eggs from Season 2, Episode 6, I do have to give a full book spoiler warning. So if you have not seen the first season of the show, that's episodes 1 through 8, and the first 6 episodes of Season 2, streaming right now on Prime Video, and if you have not read the entire Wheel of Time series, yes, that's every single book, The Eye of the World, all the way up to and including Memory of Light, be forewarned, I may ruin plot points and character arcs from both those mediums, but if you're like me, and you don't care about spoilers, and you actually enjoy them, this video's right up your alley. Alright, let's get on to the Easter eggs. Alright, so we're going to start off by talking about the Adam, the Seanchan, the Sultan, and the damane. There are a couple of things that happen in this episode that are throwbacks to things that happen in the books, but are different in the show, and they kind of mention them a little bit here. Now, in the book series, the Adam was a silvery leash, a silvery collar, and a silvery bracelet. It's a whole lot of silver and doesn't really roll off the tongue real well, does it? Now, in the show, we've actually seen it as a collar put around a woman's neck, and then it comes into this sort of neck and shoulder piece afterwards. And we've also seen the bracer, and I'm saying bracer, not bracelet, because that's what it is. It's a bracer, a very, very thick bracelet, as you will, that has a central point in it. Now, this point connects to the point in the collar or the shoulder piece, and you can also see some of the Suldam, such as Rani here, sporting rings and jewelry that also showcase some of the markings that are on the Adam. So it's a bit different, but in the show they've done away with the leash. So in the book series, the leash seemed a very central part of the Adam for a big part of the story, and then much later on it came out that you could actually make them without the leash, and that made things way easier for a bunch of different reasons. Now, logistically in the show, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a leash on somebody at all times. It's probably pretty difficult to do, and it probably doesn't look the greatest on screen, but they have added it here as a bit of flavor, a bit of text to screen, so to speak, for the book fans. So they do have sort of a leash like you'd put on a dog connected to the back of this, and that's exactly what it seems to be, especially when she's patted on the head and told she's a good girl. The scenes are pretty brutal, they're hard to watch, but they're pretty accurate in the way that the Seanchan treated channelers. They weren't people to them. They didn't think they were doing anything wrong because, well, you can't do anything wrong if you're hurting an object, because that's how they seen the Merith damane. They were objects. They were not real people. Either way, where you got to see sort of a book-accurate Adam in totality during these scenes when Gwen was actually on a leash, but likely what we'll see most of the time is only Suldam breaking the damane using the leash, and then after the damane are completely broken and they're sort of fitting in with Seanchan culture, so to speak, the leash comes off. I think that's what we're going to see. Either way, pretty brutal scenes, but a little callback to the books there. Now we're going to talk just a bit about Lanfear. Now, this scene with Lanfear and Rand, of course, you've probably seen it everywhere at this point. Even if you haven't watched the show, there are images of this absolutely everywhere because it was pure eye candy for pretty much everybody. But what I want to talk about are the two wheels. So Rand was on a wheel and Lanfear was sitting on a throne in front of a wheel. I think this is a very subtle call out to the fact that Rand is tied to the wheel. He's going to be spun out again and again and again to fight the same battles, either on the side of the light or the side of the dark, to be turned one way or the other. That's his fate. That's just what the dragon does. Now, the dragon is not the only lights champion. There are others. In fact, there is another one we will see probably in episode 8 that they're going to showcase as part of the blowing of the Horn of Valir. One of the heroes of the Horn will be the female version of the lights champion. We have seen a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff for that. But either way, I think Rand being tied to the wheel is very, very reminiscent of the fact that he is actually tied to the wheel and he's going to be spun out again and again. And Lanfear sitting on a throne in front of the wheel, well, she's serving the Dark Lord, and her whole reason for serving is power. That's what she wants. She wants power over everything, including the wheel, which is what the Dark wants. So I think this one was a really nice little nod to both the motivations of these characters from the book series. All right, so next up we have when Mat and Min were walking through the Foregate in Cairhien. This is pretty interesting because there's a whole lot of partying going on, which is what the Foregate is. It's basically a bunch of people trying to forget all of their worries in the world all the time. And they're given money by the king to party to do so. Now, in the show, it's a queen that runs Cairhien, and the parties are just the same, however. And you see these big puppets kind of walking around in the background. It's sort of a blink and you miss it moment. You see it a couple of different times, but it directly references some scenes in the book where there were big puppets handled by puppeteers that were supposed to look like Trollocs. And I think the lines that come out of that were, they look nothing like Trollocs. They've probably never seen them at all. And then eventually, some of these big puppets turned out to be actually Trollocs, and a battle ensued, which caused a whole lot of problems. The Illuminators got involved at one point or another. There were some explosions. It's a pretty cool portion of the books, and I think this is just a little call out to that. Do I think that we're going to see those scenes in the next episode? I don't think so. I think this was just a small call out to it, although I wouldn't be shocked if they added a little bit more in there. We haven't met the Illuminators just yet, but this is supposed to be a Trolloc and a call out to those scenes in the books, which is very neat. Next up, we have this. This is when Nynaeve and Elayne were, I don't want to say captured is the right word, I think rescued is the right word, by Rima Sedai of the Yellow Asha. Now, Rima Sedai is actually an Aes Sedai who was captured by the Seanchan in the book series, and she begs Egwene to remember her real name, because at some point or another, she's bound to forget it because she's being broken so terribly. But what's interesting about this is Rima Sedai is staying in a wise woman's house. You can tell that by all the herbs kind of everywhere, all over the place. And that's very common for members of the Yellow Asha. A lot of members of the Yellow Asha have eyes and ears that are wisdoms or wise womans or healers of different sorts throughout different countries. So the fact that she's staying in a house that is a house of a healer who uses herbs is not terribly out of the ordinary. And the fact that Rima Sedai also knew a little bit about herbs and talked about it a bit with Nynaeve, who's wisdom, that was kind of cool too, because that happens a fair bit in the book series. A lot of Yellow Sisters wanted to be healers, and that's why they're Yellow Sisters. So they did learn herb lore and may have been wisdoms if they didn't join the White Tower. So really nice little touch here that they're in probably a wise woman or a wisdom's house. Now, we're going to talk about this for a bit. This is tree singing. This is something I honestly didn't expect to see in the show at all. Loial is a well-known tree singer in the book series. Basically what tree singing is some Ogier have the talent to sing to plants, and they can shape and form them into ways that they want, or ways that the plant wants. In fact, in the book series, during the Great Hunt, Loial tree sings to a plant to make a quarterstaff after they go through a portal stone and they're sort of in an alternate dimension. And he comments that it was kind of horrible that the plant, the tree, really wanted to be made into a weapon, and it was happy. Sort of a play on how desperate and desolate that world was. Now, we haven't seen it yet in the show, nor has it really been mentioned, but I think this is a really good way to introduce it, because the Seanchan are absolutely terrible people, and she's using this not only as a way to humiliate Loial and kind of push him down, but to showcase her power and her authority over everyone in the room, that she has something so pretty and so cool that can do this neat thing. But when they were a little too invested in what he was doing, she dismissed him like it wasn't important at all. Either way, a nice nod to the tree singing. Do I think we'll see it again? Maybe, but I don't think it'll be a big thing like it was in the books, because let's face it, it only happened a couple of times in the books. There were references to tree sung wood, furniture, bowls, cups, things like that. It's highly sought after. So I think this may be it for the show, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get something else later on. All right, up next we have a few scenes with Egwene and her Sultan, and it's kind of interesting because there is a point when they mention Gwens Name and they say, I'll let you keep it. And that's a play to what actually happens in the book series. So at one point or another, Egwene is caught channeling without permission because she's Egwene and she's going to push boundaries and she's going to try to escape. And I believe it was when Min came to visit her in Fallen when she was captured. And when the Sultan came back, she knew that she had done this, and she punished her by taking away her name and giving her a new name, Tuli. Now, I think the reference that she can keep her own name is likely in direct reference to those scenes in the book series, but she did lose her name in the books, and she was called Tuli by the Sultan, which was pretty rough. It was rough to see this on screen. I think it would have been worse if they gave her a new name, but we're likely going to see that with other Suldam later on and other demane. Now, we have this temple. We're going to talk about, we could talk about a ton of things here, but I want to talk specifically about the Forsaken. If you take a look at the Forsaken statues in the background here, there's 8 of them, and they all have certain traits to them, and it's really hard to tell which is which, but essentially we also saw 8 statues in Season 1. And the general consensus among the fandom is that we're likely going to see Asmodean, Demandred, Grendel, Xiaomail, Lanfear, Moghedien, Xiaomail, and Saramash. Now, the thing about this is a few of them were already mentioned by name in the last episode. So we know we're going to get a couple of them. We know Xiaomail is going to be there for sure because he's in the show. Lanfear's there. Moghedien, Grendel. Are we going to get Saramash? I don't know. They did name drop the boys, so that's likely going to be Demandred and Xiaomail. I'm not 100% sure in that. We aren't totally sure on which Forsaken we're going to get out of the show, but my favorite Forsaken, and it's kind of a weird thing to say that, but my favorite one of the Chosen is Demandred, and in the book series, his whole storyline happened pretty much off page for most of it, and it paralleled Rands. So Rand was the champion of the light, and Demandred was the champion of the dark, just for a different culture. It was really very neat, and a lot of it was described in River of Souls, a short story. If you haven't read that or if you don't know about it, it's something I would definitely look up. You can read it for free online. And if I remember, I'll try to add it in a link down in the description box. But a really good read either way. Now, we're going to talk about this. This is not the first time we've seen Mat dead in the show in a dream or a vision, missing one of his eyes. And it's a direct reference to a prophecy that happens with him in the book series where he has to give up half the light of the world to save half the light of the world. In other words, he gave up one of his eyes. So he is missing an eye in the book series. He has a really cool eye patch. And there's a lot of fan art out there with Mat with the eye patch. His sword spear, so to speak, and the big wide-brimmed hat. But again, small little call out to that. We've seen it a couple of times, so it's not shocking that we've seen it here again. And we'll likely continue to see things like this, Perrin with an axe, Mat with one eye, in dreams and visions. But really cool nonetheless. Now, the next is sort of an Easter egg to the fandom, I think, because Lanfear actually calls Xiaomail Ishi in this scene. And I think that is probably a direct reference to what the fans call Xiaomail. We've called him Ishi since pretty much day one in a number of different ways, shapes, and forms. It was kind of neat to see this on screen. I think it was a call out to the fans that use that nickname for Xiaomail. Because it's not something he's normally referred to in the books at all. So I think this was just a little neat call out to the fans. I thought it was really cool. Now, this is something I've been kind of dying to talk about. Moraine is writing that she's been stilled here, and immediately my first thought was, oh no, she actually was stilled. She doesn't have a shield tied off on her. She's not going to gain the ability to channel back at all. Now, there's still a whole lot of hope she hasn't been stilled, even though she said this, because Moraine can write truths, she can speak truths that she believes to be true. It doesn't mean that they're inherently true, it's just something that she believes to be true. She is still basically following all the tenets of the 3 oaths, and in the book series, when you've been stilled and cut off from the true source, the 3 oaths are basically gone. You can do whatever you want, you can lie, it's been shown a number of different times. It doesn't mean that they're going to act the same way in the show as they will the books, but that's pretty much all we have to go on. That and the fact that if you really slow down episode 8 of season 1, you can see a shield forming in a web around her. There was no severing, there was no cutting off. It was a net around her, kind of going inside of her. Now, we've seen a couple of different spots in the book series where a shield was made very complicated, inverted, so people can't see it, and either letting a trickle power through or no power whatsoever. It was done on a couple of different Block Aja. It was done on Asmodean when he was teaching Rand. So this is, I hope, something like that. I'm hoping it gets resolved before or around the end of the season. Maybe Rand learns enough to see a shield put on her by a male channeler, or perhaps it's inverted and he can't see it. And this is just what we're going to get from now on. Either way, even though she's written this, I don't believe she's stilled. And while not really truly an Easter egg, it's something I want to chuck in here and talk about just a little bit. Next, we're going to talk about Barthanes. Now, Lord Barthanes in the book series is a dark friend. Yeah, there's a reason I gave spoilers for this particular video. And that's revealed when he's talking to Rand, when he's actually in his manor at a party. So the plotline in the show is a little bit different than in the book series for Kyrian, but a lot of the major plot beats are still there. I think the party is going to be the wedding. I think perhaps they're going to get some information, and Barthanes will be revealed as a dark friend at that point, and that's when they're going to have to leave. But that's to be seen. We have 2 episodes left. It'll likely happen next episode. But what I found very interesting about this is Barthanes is just shady. He's just shady as anything. We know he's a dark friend, but his mom also seems to be shady in a number of different ways. I'm not saying she is totally a dark friend, because she wasn't in the book series, and I don't think making her a dark friend of the show makes a whole lot of sense, but I believe she is totally influenced by her son, and that he is manipulating her, and a lot of the decisions they're making, especially regarding Moraine, while do make sense considering the relationship they have, are, I think, a little bit over the top. I think that's because Barthanes is a dark friend, and these scenes here where we got to see them talk, especially with the sandwich, that was a really weird thing. Eat the sandwich. I want you to eat the sandwich. Was it poisoned? I don't know. My first thought was that it was poisoned because Barthanes is a dark friend. He's trying to get rid of Moraine. And then his mom was right in there. Why didn't you? It was a bit much for me. I think it remains to be seen what we're going to see with these two in the next couple of episodes, or in the next episode. I don't think we'll see them in episode 8. But just remember, Barthanes is a dark friend, and everything that he's saying and doing is likely not to be taken at face value. All right, next up we have this, and I wanted to talk about this because this was a neat little call out to a couple of different things. The first thing is the halo that you see around Aes Sedai when they channel, and the second thing is the opening credits from Season 1. There is a noticeable lack of the opening credits for Season 2. We have not seen them at all yet. I've heard rumors and rumblings that we may see them for episode 8, and that will be the only episode we'll see them for, so sort of as a finale type thing, they'll bring them back. But I don't know if that's going to be an actual thing or not. I just know it's a rumor. But one of the things that we've seen in those opening credits was all of the different types of halos around the Aes Sedai, and this mirrors those ones. So I don't know if this is a call out to the opening credit scene or if it's a call out to the halos from the book series. Either way, I thought it was a really very neat visual reference to one or the other. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is this one here. This is with Elayne, Nynaeve, and Rima, and they're studying the Adam. Now, what's interesting about this is not the first time we've seen something like this, but it is a subtle hint and a call out to the fact that Elayne is likely going to be making Ter'angreal on screen sooner rather than later. She is very adept at it in the books. It happens much later, of course. She does a lot of studying. She figures some things out on her own. She has a lot of failures, but she eventually does make them, including an Adam. Now, what I think is interesting about this exchange is she is the most, has the most knowledge about it after a short period of time. And this is not the only time that it's been mentioned where she likes to tinker with things or she likes to look into things. So I think we may see, probably not this season, but likely some point next season, her actively investigating and making Ter'angreal, which is pretty neat. And it's just a subtle call out to that. Now we're going to talk about this scene here. This scene is a huge bit of foreshadowing, in my opinion, to what we're going to see likely in episode 8. In episode 8, we'll likely see the Sultan Caller. Now, it happens in the book series that basically Elayne, Nynaeve, they try to steal some Sultan clothing, and when they get caught, they snap an Adam around the neck of a Sultan, more as a way of just trying to get away. When that happens, then they figure out, well, the Sultan can be collared, and that leads into the whole discussion of why they can be collared. Well, they're women who can learn how to channel. There are 2 types, women born with the spark and women who can learn who can channel. And what's interesting about this is this exchange here, the Sultan is talking about feeling the connection, feeling complete. And it's a circle. It's a circle that isn't consensual, but this is still a circle. She is not using much of her own power. She's using all of Egwene's, but she can channel or learn to channel. And in the book series, it's mentioned that a lot of experienced Sultan can almost see the weaves. I'm sure they can, but they're not ever going to admit that. And they can feel or know what their Damane are doing. It's because they can actually channel. And this was a subtle call out to that, which I thought was very neat. Now we're getting into the Mat and the Rand. In the scenes with Mat in the show, just before he met Rand, he's winning at dicing. He's winning a fair bit here. He doesn't truly have his luck at this point in the books. He's always been a little lucky. He's always had a fair bit of luck, but his luck really started to surge after he was fully healed from the dagger. Now that happened, I believe, in the Dragon Reborn, and he showcased that luck by just dicing a whole bunch at one point, making a whole bunch of money, fighting some toughs on rooftops, doing all kinds of different things, and actually actively saving himself just by not even thinking about it, by swinging his quarterstaff up into his shoulder, which was a really cool scene. I don't believe he has his luck just yet. Maybe they've made some changes, but I'm pretty sure he's playing with loaded dice at this point, which is something that he's accused of a fair bit in the book series, but he doesn't actually do because, well, he has his luck. So I think it's kind of a little nod to the luck we're going to see later on, and perhaps they're showcasing just a bit of it early. I'm not 100%. Next thing I want to talk about is this. This is Min's vision of Mat stabbing Rand. Now, Rand has 2 wounds in his side in the book series. The first one is made by a Xiaomail. It's full of darkness. The second one is made by Fane's dagger. Happens much later on, also full of darkness, but a different type. When he's healed, they're sealed away from one another, and they seem to want to fight each other, and it just was not great for Rand at the time. They never truly completely healed. Min's vision was of Mat stabbing Rand. I think one of 2 things is going to happen. Min's visions are never wrong, but they are not exactly how you think they would be in all cases. So either Mat really does stab Rand because he feels he has to at one point or another. Maybe Rand is drawing too much power. Maybe something's going on with Rand in the next couple episodes, but that'll cause one of the wounds. Or this is going to happen much, much later, and either it's going to be Fane or someone else with the dagger under, say, a Mirror of Mist, someone made to look like Mat to get close enough to Rand to stab him with the dagger, or Mat does it later on. Either way, I think it's going to happen, but maybe not in exactly the way we expect, and that's one of the things I really like about Min's visions. There was a bunch of them in the first season that still haven't paid off yet, one of them including rainbows. I think that rainbow one we're going to see probably in the first couple episodes of season 3. That's likely when Rand brings rain to the Aiel Waste and we see rainbows there. Not 100% on that. There's a whole lot of theories kicking around on them, but Min's visions, just like in the book series, they're a topic of hot debate within the fandom, which is pretty neat. Now I'll talk about this scene here where Leandra mentions it's not often that this many Aes Sedai gather at once, and the last time they had 14 Aes Sedai in one spot was when they installed a new king of Cairhien. Rand is here. Rand is meeting with the Amyrlin. We've seen that from promotional material. And the traditional number of Aes Sedai to gentle a man is 13. So Rand may not know that yet, but it's likely going to be something explained to him by Lan or Moraine in the next episode or 2 before he meets the Amyrlin. It's meant as a scare tactic. That is on purpose. Swan has done this to send a message. And for book fans who know what this message means, it was pretty chilling. But yeah, she means business, and when she meets with Rand, I think it'll be slightly different than what we saw in the book series, and I think that the promotional material we've seen where she's talking to him about being the Dragon Reborn may be peppered with a few threats here and there as well. Not 100% on that, but I think that's likely what's going to happen. All right, next up are the rings. These rings that were given to Nynaeve by Rima. Basically, it was a very touching moment when Rima said, "Will you bring my ring back to the Flame Sister?" She is calling Nynaeve an equal because Nynaeve is not only a healer but can use the one power. Really touching scene before Rima and her warder go out to do battle with the Shan-Chen and basically die to save Nynaeve and Elayne. But what's interesting about this is Nynaeve now has a handful of Aes Sedai rings. In the book series, they can use their accepted rings as a way to pass as real Aes Sedai because they just move them on a different finger, they flash them about. Nynaeve is especially bad for flashing the ring about and using Aes Sedai authority. But they can't do that in the show because these rings have stones in them that represent their Ajas, and there's been a big question in the fandom on how they're going to do that. I think this is how they're going to do it. She now has a pocket full of rings, including a yellow ring. She'll likely use Rima's ring to pass off as Yellow Aja during the next season, because we know the next season is going to center around the events of the Shadow Rising, which includes her masquerading as a full Aes Sedai. She'll likely go back to the tower, finish some stuff with Egwene, so Egwene can do her testing, or maybe just maybe, none of that will happen, and they'll likely go straight to the waist after this. We're not totally sure, but either way, she now has a full pocket of Aes Sedai rings, so she can pass off as full Aes Sedai. The last thing I want to talk about is this. In the book series and in the show, hand movements are a very important part of channeling, and I think they're showcased this way a bit more in the show. There is some confusion from some people wondering why Aes Sedai couldn't channel without using their hands. Well, it's because they learn the weaves using their hands and different movements. And in the book series, it's actually stated a number of times. You can likely tell which sister trained her apprentices or her novices and accepted by the hand movements they use. This hand movement here is a twisting kind of mashing movement, and we see a Sultan just get absolutely crushed by it. But this is another callback to the point that hand movements are very, very important. And who are we going to see in the next couple episodes? Well, the White Cloaks are coming back into this, and this is a reminder that hand movements not only are important, but what they do with them showcases what they're going to be doing with the power. So we see the White Cloaks again. Are they going to be hassling Aes Sedai? Maybe. We know they're fighting the Seanchan for sure, but I think this particular where they focused on the hand movements is just a reminder to the audience that it is an important thing and a very big weakness of the Aes Sedai. All right, folks, so that's the Easter eggs I found during that episode. I'm sure there are more. I'm sure I missed some. I'm going to do videos of everything I've missed at the end of Season 2. So if I missed some things, let me know in the comments down below. We'll gather them all up. I'll pin the comments at the end of the season, and we'll figure out what I missed, try to give credit to who gives me these particular Easter eggs I missed, and then we'll add them all to one big video of Easter eggs for all of Season 2. We won't repeat the same ones I've already done, but we'll try to focus on the ones I've missed. Now, there will be a breakdown for this episode, likely coming within the next day or two, definitely, probably before Tuesday, and then Wednesday, expect a preview of Episode 7, because we will likely get another 2 to 3 minute clip of what happens in Episode 7, and we'll go through the teaser that happened at the end of Episode 6, and we'll try to figure out what's going to happen in Episode 7. So there's a couple of videos coming for me in the next couple of days. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. We put out a ton of content, and click the notification bell, because it doesn't always come out in the same day, because as you folks all know, life happens. Now, all of that being said, let me know in the comments down below what you folks want to see. Now, in the past, between seasons, I've done a bunch of different things. I cover news, I cover leaks, I cover rumors, but I'm also done Talking Wheel of Time with. I've interviewed some of the cast that have been gracious enough to come on the channel. I've interviewed people that are prominent in the Wheel of Time community and in like geekdom communities here, talking about the Wheel of Time, specifically just about the Wheel of Time. I've done how-to videos. I've done what-if videos. I've done other videos like that. Is there any content that you folks want to see from me that I'm not currently doing or that you want to see in between seasons? Let me know in the comments down below. And I can start organizing that now, because Season 2 is ending in just a few short weeks, and then we're going to be in that likely year to 2 year period before Season 3, and while the news and the leaks are amazing, there's also a whole lot of other time to fill, and I want to know what content you folks want to fill that time. All right, all of that being said, thank you so very much for sticking with us here to the very end, and here's to many more.